Right, good afternoon, guys. Please turn your cameras on so that I know that you are not just logged in and but doing something else. Uh, I should, yeah, I should know that you are there, not just logged in. Happens a lot of times. Yeah, uh we were supposed to meet in person, but unfortunately, the weather is not allowing that. Okay, Fatima. All right, and yeah, let's start. Share my screen. So, as I like to do um, in most of the lectures, I like to discuss some IB news before starting the chapter. So, let's discuss something that has been in news since the last, say, about a couple of years, right? So we talked about this last week as well, right? De-dollarization, strength of dollar, so many nations and especially BRICS trying to move away from dollar, right? Even EU dumped a lot of US treasuries a few days ago because of the tension between US and EU regarding Greenland, right? So, what is this de-dollarization all about? Uh, what does it mean? And why do some countries find it very important? So, BRICS, as we know, has been talking about de-dollarization the most, and especially some countries in BRICS like Russia and China are most interested in it. So, it all comes from something called SWIFT network. So, SWIFT is basically you don't need to remember the full form of SWIFT, but just understand that it's a network of all the financial institutions in the world, right? And say an Indian trader wants to do trade with a foreign trader, right? Now he has to, he will sell something or buy something, and he will get the money through an Indian bank or send the money through an Indian bank. But instead of that Indian bank sending or receiving the money with the foreign bank, say a Sri Lankan trader, right? The money will actually go from an American bank. Okay. And why does this happen? Because one, most of the trade takes place in dollars. So if Indian trader is doing trade with Sri Lankan trader, they are not doing the trade in Indian rupees or Sri Lankan currency. They are doing the trade in USD, right? We saw that in the last, in the last week as well, that even if Indonesian company has to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, if they will not do the trade in Indonesian rupiah or dinar, they will they do trade in USD. Even many a times, even Saudi firms, two Saudi firms, even they do trade with each other in USD, right? So that is why the money will pass through American bank. Plus, um, uh, not most of the banks in the world, they do not have a relationship with all other banks in the world. So they generally go through American banks because American uh, banking system is more compliant, more trustworthy, right? Like better KYC compliant, know your customer compliance and all. So that is another reason why they generally like to route the money through American banking system. Okay. So that is why the money will pass through American banks. And what happens then, the American banks will take their cut, which would be about 7 to 5%, the transaction fee and all. And without doing almost anything, like they are not a part of that trade, but still the American banks earn money through that. And it increases the cost of transaction for uh, the Indian and Sri Lankan traders. So what is the problem with this? That if the US does not, is not happy with your country, one of the countries which is a part of that transaction, then they can impose sanctions. And because all these banks, Indian banks, Sri Lankan banks, and all these banks in the world, they have their accounts with an American bank, then American banks can always freeze their accounts, right? It has happened in the past. We know that. They froze around $300 billion of Russia when the war started 4 years ago, right? So that is what President Biden said, that they will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen, basically all the US allies, right? And these were the largest sanctions in the modern history, and that has been happening with Iran as well. That is why Russia has been talking with other countries to circumvent the SWIFT network and build an infrastructure through which they can do trade with each other in their own currencies rather than having to route money through American or European banks, right? What other countries come to your mind who would want to be part of the, who would want to circumvent the SWIFT network, or who are feeling the brunt or the heat of sanctions besides Russia and Iran?
China.
What are China right now is uh, does not have any sanctions, but yeah, it would want to be a part of a system that circumvents SWIFT. Yes. Yes, Philo, you are raising hand.
Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil, yeah, is a part of BRICS, so yeah, of course. Uh, so when you are not a part of when you can circumvent the SWIFT network, the Indian and Sri Lankan trader would not have to pay that extra money, the transaction fee, right? They will save money, and money can directly go from Indian bank to Sri Lankan bank or Russian, for example, right? Yeah, I wanted to. I was expecting someone to say Venezuela. Uh, I mean, this is of course an older news. That time Venezuela was not our 53rd state. So, but yeah, Venezuela at that time was facing sanctions, right? So it also was trying to do trade in local currencies, not USD. But is it easy to circumvent SWIFT? No, it's not because when BRICS countries were trying to do that, uh, President Trump just last year said that if countries start ditching USD, then US will put sanctions on them, right? So you don't want to anger Uncle Sam. Plus, BRICS is not a cohesive or like a homogeneous unit. Some countries in the BRICS, they do not get along with each other very well, right? So it's very hard to reach a consensus, and countries will also lose autonomy of making their own financial and monetary decisions. So when we reach the next chapters, we will understand more that how when we reach the trading blocks chapters, regional blocks, we will see that how countries lose autonomy if they give up their own currency. If they adopt a common currency, then they won't be able to make their own uh, financial and monetary decisions that well, right? So all these screenshots which were there, all these news, they were about an year or 1.5 years old. But something I saw just yesterday. So yeah, this is also an old screenshot, like an year old, where this person said that how it's almost impossible to come up with a common BRICS currency because it's not feasible. It's not easy to give up ditch your own currencies and USD as well because USD still holds supremacy in worldwide transactions. But something I saw just yesterday was this news where countries, due to uncertainty of due to what has been happening in the last few months, you know, trade deals are going back and forth, sanctions are going back, and tariffs and sanctions are going back and forth, and all the geopolitical threats and geopolitical uncertainties that have been happening in the last few months. So I think that has pushed this agenda again, like it has come back on the table that BRICS countries are again seriously thinking about launching their own unified payment system. So I found this very interesting that how uncertain times we are living in. So anyway, I wanted to explain this whole Swift thing and de-dollarization thing. So that is why I included it. So let's start the chapter now. And before we start the chapter, actually, let me take attendance. All right. So, as the name of the chapter says, we'll see what are the prevalent political, economic, and legal systems in the world, and how do they relate to international business, right? So, political systems, um, they are mainly governed by, you know, through two philosophies. Uh, Either the society is collectivist or individualist, and that somewhat relates to whether the country is democratic or totalitarian. What do you think about US? Is US a collectivist country or individualist country? Hmm? US collectivist or individualist?
What do you mean by collectivist? Like working with other nations?
No, the society. So, uh, say,
Well, no, then they'd be individualist because of things like capitalism.
yeah. So, individualism focuses like puts gives a lot of stress to individual pursuits, like your individual rights take precedence over the interests of the state. So you have full freedom in your economic pursuits, political pursuits. You want to open a political party, you are free to open your political party the very next day. If you want to open a business, you are free to do whatever you want, and even otherwise, like socially as well. US is very individualist country, right? uh, Collectivist countries are like other parts of the world, like Asian, African, even Latin American societies. They are more collectivist in nature. Like there's a lot of emphasis on collective goals. And please mute yourself. Who's this voice sound coming from? So, in collectivist societies, generally socialism and communism crops up where a lot of emphasis is laid on public ownership. And there's something called social democrats. I think one of you, I think Philo or someone else, did mention social democratic countries last week, right? Do you remember which countries are social democratic countries?
Sam, Gabrielle, you're the only good part of me, which is why I can't ever let you. Damn, this is so
Please
stupid.
mute
I can't
yourself.
come over here because I was afraid from you.
Whose whose account is this sound coming from?
That's what I tell you. Gabby, you're his oxygen. He would do anything to get you again. I see that you have the same places. Three locks on the basement door, just like it.
See, this is why I ask you guys to turn on your cameras. Like, I think somebody is watching something or talking to someone else. Like, it's not done. Please mute yourself and turn on your cameras. Definitely some of you are doing something else just by logging in. Yeah, do you guys remember the Social Democrats we were talking about last week?
Yeah, like some countries in Scandinavia.
Right, right. Scandinavian and Nordic countries, they are generally known
Yes.
as Social Democrats because they have the capitalism, like you are free to pursue your economic pursuits. There are private companies, but healthcare and education is government sponsored, it's subsidized by the government, right? And I'll repeat again, when you read the slides, do not read them in Canvas, download them so that you do not miss the teaching notes or instructor notes at the bottom, like below the slides, because a lot of things are written there. and I also ask questions from that. So do not forget that. Right. So yeah, Western countries generally are individualist and collectivist societies are generally found in Eastern societies. And an example of what happens in you know communist or socialist, basically collectivist societies was an example of Mao's thing. You must have heard of Cultural Revolution. At least some of you must have definitely heard or even read about it, right? Cultural Revolution in China. So all the private property was abolished, confiscated. So there are two ways through which private property can be abolished. One is expropriation. Expropriation is, so I have a house and tomorrow government decides that it will take over my house, but it pays me for the house. Okay, I'll receive money for my property, which the government is taking over. That is expropriation, and confiscation is government just takes over and does not compensate me for my property, for my house, for my land. Government does not compensates. So that is confiscation. Uh, and yeah, this is what was done at that time. And in fact, people were forced to live in dorms. So if you are working on farmland, you are growing something, say you are growing rice, you do not own that land. Government owns that land now. Government will tell you how much to grow. When the food gets grown, you will send all the food to government, and then government will decide how much to distribute amongst you people. You cannot decide how much you want to keep the food that you grew. So this is what happened in uh, you know at that time in Cultural Revolution in China during Mao Zedong's time. And you were supposed to live in dorms together, no personal housing. And even if you were married or you had sisters or daughters or wives, you would still not live together. You would live uh, separately with men. And sometimes multiple families were placed in the same communal homes. So this is like an extreme form of communism, you can say. So we do not have to go into like historic reasons why all that happened. Those are long stories. But it has been generally seen that individualist societies tend to be, more democratic, and collectivist societies might end up in totalitarian states where the one political party or one person has absolute control. So, what all examples come to your mind when you hear totalitarian states or communist states? Can you name some examples? Yeah, just speak up. You don't need to raise hand every time.
Cuba.
Yes, Cuba is one example. Then, any other examples?
Oh, Turkmenistan
Oh, Turkmenistan is also. I
is totalitarian. Um,
Oh, it's just one party system there? I don't know. I have very
it's
little knowledge.
basically like North Korea. I don't know. It's the first thing that came to my head.
Oh, okay, okay. I don't have much knowledge about Turkmenistan. Yeah, could be because I think it was part of Soviet Union, right? So could be
Yeah,
possible.
they have like a crazy regime. Like they have to, they have certain sanctions and like they have certain rules. Like everybody has to drive a white car. The control housing, stuff like extreme stuff like that.
I see, I see. Interesting. I didn't have knowledge about that. Yeah, North Korea is definitely probably the most extreme example. We'll see what all kind of totalitarian states are there.
Also, Rwanda is an example. They have a dictator right now, but people call him like a benevolent dictator.
Benevolent dictator. Okay. Yeah, many African states have uh, the same person ruling them for like 30, 40 years. That is an issue in many African countries. So, yeah, you could give many examples from Africa. So, in democracy, ideally, there should be freedom of expression, free media, universal adult suffrage, fair court system. I mean, you can debate whether these things are there or not, or whether they're unbiased or not. But on paper, yeah, ideally, you have these things in a democracy. And totalitarianism, there are many kinds. So communist totalitarianism, where there is single party system based on communist ideals. We had Soviet Union, Russia, China. I mean, China is just communist on paper. I mean, economically, it's not communist anymore. It's probably even more capitalist than, not more, but very, very capitalist now, almost as capitalist as US. Though still a lot of economic policies are controlled by CCP. But yeah, it has single party system, and Vietnam has single party system. Um, Philo gave example of Turkmenistan, Cuba. Theocratic totalitarianism is when you have rules based on theocracy, on religion, and one single religious group controls the whole, country, like politically and economically. So you can see that in Afghanistan, many Middle East countries, tribal totalitarianism is when one tribe controls that, and you can find that in some African countries. Right wing totalitarianism is not that prevalent anymore, but uh, examples of that would be 1930s and 1940s, Germany and Italy. No, right? Uh, Fascism at that time was prevalent in Italy, right? So Germany and Italy of 1930s and 40s would be an example of right wing totalitarianism, right? uh, yeah, no country is a pure democracy, right? There are some elements of authoritarianism in every country. Some have more, some have less, but yeah, it's very hard to find a pure democracy. Then economic systems. So market economy is where you have full freedom to pursue any economic activity. So if I want to start a venture, I have full right to start a venture. Okay, I can just go to government offices, take permissions, take approvals, get some paperwork done, and within a few days, I can start my own company. If that is allowed, and government does not put restrictions on my economic pursuits, then that is market economy, right? Command economy is when government plans the goods and government decides the quantity and all. So the example that I showed you of 1960s, 50s, and 60s China during Cultural Revolution, government was deciding how much to produce. Government will decide how much to sell, who to sell, and at what price to sell. You will sell to whom, and at what price you will sell, everything will be decided by the government. That is command economy, right? So would you have any motivation, any incentive to open your own business? If you know that whatever business you will open, government is going to take over it and might not even compensate you for that. You why would you pursue any idea? So if you have any idea, any new idea, if you have come up with some new technology, if you have come up with some new idea like e-commerce or ride sharing or something like that, you would not pursue that idea, you would not pursue that innovation because government is going to take over your idea. You won't have control, you won't have ownership over your idea, so over your firm. You will not reap the benefits, economic benefits of your own idea, so you won't pursue it, right? While in market economy, government only acts at. So does government have any role in market economy? Yes, government has role of regulator or overseeing authority. So does US government run any airlines here in US? Is any airline owned by government here? Any automobile firm owned by government? Guys, say yes or no.
No, I don't think so.
No, right? But government is present as regulator. There is a regulatory authority that oversees the airlines and air traffic. There are regulatory authorities overseeing automobile firms, all other businesses, FMCG firms, and all. So, all that is the role of government in a market economy. Like in India, because India is still moving towards free market economy from the heavily socialist and communist state it was uh, 30 or 40 years ago. Like till 2 or 3 years ago, government was flying an airline. Government was running an airline, right? It was owned the one of the airlines. Air India was owned by government, right? It got privatized 2 or 3 years ago. So, so in market economy, the funda is that government has no business to be in business. That is the theory. That is the fundamental it works on. Mixed economy is when some sectors are privately owned, but some are government owned. So some sectors do need to be owned by a government because uh, they require support or they are strategic. We will see that too. That in which sectors should government represent when we reach chapter 6 or 7. We'll cover that. But uh, generally, the sectors like public transport, right? Subway, metro, buses, dam building, highway construction, which require very high capital, which require billions of dollars of investment. Those sectors are generally run by governments in many countries. Right? If there are no companies present in your country who can undertake that much investment or raise that much capital, or if there is some sector which is strategically important like NASA, um, you know, defense, you would think twice before allowing private companies or foreign companies to invest in defense sector, right? Like building your Air Force jets, Air Force planes, or sectors that are strategically important for the nation. Or if there are some sectors who are, uh, you know, uh, seeing some trouble, facing some trouble, struggling, like it happened during 2008 recession. US government stepped in and helped Citigroup, General Motors to bail them out, right? Then legal systems. So, what all legal systems are present? One is common law. So, common law is basically it evolved in England, and it's based on tradition, precedent, custom. So, here in common law, judges not only apply the law, but they also interpret the law. You know that England doesn't have a written constitution, right? I think that is the case. I think, as far as I remember, they don't have a written constitution. Uh, the law there works on precedents and traditions, right? So,
Said,
judges know, huh?
you said Greenland, Professor?
England,
England. Okay, my bad.
yeah, UK, Britain, yeah, not Greenland. England. So judges there not only have the right to apply the law or enforce the law, but also interpret the law. So they will interpret it based on the previous judgments, how judges have decided the cases in the previous cases, right? So it's more flexible and more subjective. But that is not good for if you are an international business firm, if you are a firm who wants to enter a country, you would want to have more objective, more pinpointed laws, more clarity about how your case will be treated, right? So you would want less subjectivity and more objectivity in that case, right? So civil law uh, is like that. So common law is mostly found in British colonies, the countries which were British colonies once. Like so Indian subcontinent and African countries, all the countries which were part of British Commonwealth or are a part of British Commonwealth, you will find common law mostly in those countries. But civil law is present in countries like Germany, Russia, Japan, where laws are more objective. So in these countries, judges do not have the freedom to interpret the law; they can only apply the law. So the contracts that get made in common law countries are more elaborate. It's more expensive to write those contracts because you need to incorporate every possible uh, unforeseen circumstance. You need to write down every possible unforeseen situation that may arise. So the contracts tend to be more elaborate and expensive, while civil law, it's more easy to write down contracts, right? Theocratic law is, of course, found in theocratic countries like many Middle East countries. Uh, but even those countries now have to use the theocratic law along with common law or civil law because uh, the theocratic law uh, may not be developed enough to deal with the intricacies of modern business. You know, world has changed a lot. It's new and new technology are evolving, and those things are not mentioned in religious scriptures. So even those countries need to use the theocratic law with common law or civil law to deal with the new intricacies of the modern world or modern business. Bureaucratic law is mostly found in like communist countries where bureaucrats have a lot of power and the law basically runs on the whims and fancies of the bureaucrats there, the leaders there, and it's the most unpredictable. Uh, so that is why most dangerous for conducting international business because you don't know when they would demand, bribes or They might demand something, favors. They might demand some favors you do to them, you give them, so that they may approve your business or approve your contract or tender, right? But what are contracts, by the way? We are talking about contracts. So contracts are, specific conditions under which an exchange occur, and we saw that contracts are very detailed in common law, less detailed in civil law, and there are organizations as well, like United Nations Convention on Contracts for the International Sales of Goods. So if you are a signatory to this CISG, then for the businesses that happen between two countries, or businesses which take place in a third country, you would follow these rules for contracts so that there is less ambiguity and more clarity on how to conduct business in other countries, right? For whose law you are not familiar with, right? Then property rights and corruption. What is a property? Property could be anything that you own. It could also be an intellectual property, and property rights are all the rights that you have uh, through monetization of that property, right? So, uh, why countries need to be wary of property rights of a country? Because in many parts of the world, the intellectual property rights are not well enforced. The enforcement is very lax, very poor. I don't know how many of you are familiar, but like when I was growing up in India, like 20, 30 years ago, uh, we hardly ever bought CDs and the real CDs and DVDs of movies. So, like, one way is to contribute to the intellectual properties by going to the cinema hall, buying the ticket, paying the money, and watching the movie. Okay, that is one contribution because they have made a movie, they have spent so much money, resources on making content. So, you need to pay for that, right? The other is you can at that time, you can buy a CD, DVD, or VCR. I don't know how many of you are familiar with VCRs, but there used to be VCRs as well 30, 35 years ago, right? Uh, so you can buy them uh, through the company like real VCRs or CDs or DVDs and contribute to the IPR of that content, right? But there was so much piracy at that time that you can easily get very cheap, very inexpensive CDs and DVDs. Like somebody can either shoot the movie in the cinema hall, record the movie in the cinema hall, or you can get a real CD and DVD and you can copy it on your computer through CD writer or DVD writer, and you can buy pirated movies, or even later you can use torrent or websites, 123movies.com, jacksmovies.com. So all that piracy was rampant. It still is, though it has decreased a lot. In fact, as per capita income rises of a country, so like India's per capita income has risen a lot in the last 20, 30 years. So I see people resorting to those piracy means less now. They feel that why spend so much time and energy in finding a movie on internet when you can just buy a Netflix or Amazon Prime subscription and you can watch so many movies. So they don't feel the need because they have the spending propensity now. They have the spending power now. 30 years ago, India was much poorer. So people didn't want to spend money. but they also wanted to enjoy. So they used to resort to these pirated means. But now, because they can afford, so they just take subscriptions now of OTT platforms. So piracy is less prevalent, but it's still not zero, right? It's still prevalent. So these problems developed in economy. So of course, piracy is much less prevalent in Western world, right? So when the companies from US, Canada, Europe, when they go to these countries, they fear about piracy a lot. Not just entertainment industry, but other industries as well. Like you can find you can find the logos and trademarks being misused. I mean, being used without permission. So if you go to these countries, you can find shoes with the name ADIBAS, Adibas, or they will have the A. So you can write A in two ways, right? One is like this. Um, how can I use whiteboard? Oh, okay. Yeah, I know it is. So one is like this, right? Other is like this, right? So you would find some of them like you won't even notice that it is a fake or pirated Adidas. You would have A like written this way rather than this way, and you will find all these fake products being sold there. So yeah, the piracy is very prevalent in other countries. So that is why a strong enforcement of intellectual property rights is important. So yeah, we have these rankings as well, and you would see that there are countries which have even lower corruption than US. Especially some European countries and Australian continent. And developing nations generally tend to have more corruption, right? Now, one problem that Western firms face when they go to other parts of the world, say, suppose there is a tender to build a dam in Cambodia, all right? And companies from all over the world are bidding for this tender. Now, this tender is, of course, very big, like several $billion, because constructing a dam requires a lot of capital. So, an American firm is bidding for it, a Ghanaian firm is bidding for it, some Cambodian firms are bidding, some Indian firms, some Chinese firms, companies from all over the world are bidding. Now, American firm knows that there are strong anti-corruption laws in US. If you are found to bribing a foreign official to obtain a tender, then there would be strict action against you in your home country, right? It has happened in the past. Many companies have been caught of bribing foreign officials and all. But corruption is more acceptable, or bribery is more common in Ghana and Cambodia. So Ghanaian firm, uh, you know, they don't think twice before bribing the Cambodian government or Cambodian, whatever company has invited the tenders, and they go and bribe the whole chain from top to bottom, the whole chain they bribe. The American firm might have submitted a better tender, lower price, better quality of products in the tender, but still the tender was awarded to Ghanaian firm because of the corruption. So Western firms regularly expressed disappointment and frustration at how these other countries, how the things work in other countries, that even though they offer superior quality, but still they sometimes lose the tenders because they fear giving bribes, while these other countries, companies, they are more open in giving and as well as accepting bribes. So it makes an uneven playing field. There's no level playing field. It's not that American or European firms don't give bribes; they do, but they think twice before doing that. They want to avoid that. And I remember there was an Iranian movie, an Iranian filmmaker who was trying to make a movie. I think the name was Screams of an Ant. Screams of Ants or Screams of an Ant. They wanted to shoot this movie in India, and that filmmaker had to wait for 15 years to get permissions for shooting that movie in India because uh, so many officials they wanted bribes, and they were so, like, they delayed the paperwork, and they were not giving them permissions and approvals. So there was so much bureaucratic hurdles and bribery that the filmmaker was so frustrated. He said that ideally I would have shot this film, I would have made this film 15 years ago, but it took me 15 years to get all the permissions and all. So yeah, that is the problem these firms face in other parts of the world. So there is FCPA in US, and then there is a Convention on Combating Bribery of Foreign Public Officials in International Business Transactions by OECD. So OECD is, do you know OECD? Have you heard this term before? What is OECD? OECD is basically the part of the world where all the aliens land and all the superheroes give birth. So it's basically the Western world in the, actually the Western world as that is called, right? So that is Europe, North America, and Australia. Right? So Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Then there is also something called grease money. So grease money is, I mean, it will come again in the next chapter, but let me introduce it here for you. So according to FCPA, you are not allowed to pay bribes, but you are allowed to pay grease money. So grease money is, say you have got the tender. Say that Cambodian dam tender was awarded to the US firm. Now, what happens in these countries that even if you have won the tender, still sometimes to start your work, they will keep putting hurdles in your way, and they will keep asking you for money. That, oh, if you want to start the work there, oh, you need permission to start the work, you need some paperwork. So, under FCPA, grease money is allowed. So, as the name signifies, grease, to expedite the work. So, according to FCPA, because you have already won the tender, but you just want to expedite the work, that is not bribe. I mean, it's of course a gray area. You can say that that is also a bribe. You can debate that. But under FCPA, that is allowed. It's called there is another name for this. One is grease money and one is speed money. I think it's also called a speed money, something like that. So, intellectual property. Now, we hear these terms all the time. So, what is patent? Patent is when you have invented something, right? And you get exclusive right for a defined period. What is copyright? Copyright is generally used in the context of authors, composition, playwright, copyright strike. So I don't know if some of you are content creators, but if you are, and if you upload videos on, say, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and all, and if you use some song in your video, you might receive a copyright strike. So if that song is not allowed to be used without the company's permission, like I remember once I uploaded an Interstellar video on my Instagram story, and that my Instagram story was not visible to anyone because I received a copyright strike within a few minutes that you cannot use this sound, this music, because it belongs to so and so production firm or so and so company. So I could not, so that I could not use that song basically in my post. Excuse me. And trademark is um, your registered design and all. So if you cannot use half-eaten apple as logo because it belongs to Apple, right? It's Apple's trademark, right? You cannot use that X sign or just do it because that belongs to Nike. So there is World Intellectual Property Organization as well. They sometimes meet and they sign conventions for the protection of uh, industrial property, intellectual property. Then product safety and product liability. What does product safety and product liability mean? Um, like if you are building something, like if there's a building, there should be proper evacuation pathways in case there is a fire accident or you know uh, any emergency, earthquake or something, in cinema halls and all. So you might have heard of that accident that took place last month in Switzerland, Swiss Alps, where I guess about 50 people got killed due to in a fire accident, right? So there should be proper fire safety procedures and all. And there was a popular case in India as well in late 90s in a cinema hall where there was a fire and accident, and I think more than 100 people died in that incident. So that is product safety and product liability. And yeah, those things should be kept in mind when you decide which country to go to, because some countries have better enforcement while some countries do not have that good enforcement of laws. So ultimately, what is the takeaway from this chapter? Uh, that when you decide to go abroad as a firm, when you decide to undertake FDI in a country, or which country to enter, then you would analyze that country through political, economic, and legal lens. And generally, you would prefer going to a democratic country which has a market based system, strong legal enforcement, and pro business environment, and a strong political environment which supports businesses. Uh, so, strong legal system also means that, say, if you are in a joint venture or in some contract with a local firm. So if you are an American firm in, say, Philippines, and you were in a joint venture, or you have some supplier buyer part relationship or some franchise agreement or something, You have some kind of relationship with the local Filipino firm, and you get into a legal entanglement with that firm. That is, um, you both go to court regarding some dispute. Now, you should have the trust in the local judiciary that the judiciary will not be biased towards Filipino firm. That, oh, it will always pronounce judgment in the favor of the Filipino firm because it is Philippines. The judges are Filipinos, and we have absolutely no recourse, no legal recourse. We have nothing to fall back on, and no support system in the country because that erodes the trust in the local polity, local judiciary. So it would set a precedent that whenever a new uh, international firm would think of entering Philippines, they would hesitate in coming to the country and invest because they would feel that, oh, if we ever get into some legal dispute, the local judiciary and executive and administration would always discriminate against us and will always favor the local firms, right? So that should not happen. There should be a strong legal system. Western countries are preferred and are seen as more business friendly because their legal system, political system, and economic systems are more robust and more transparent and unbiased as compared to other countries, right? So that is our takeaway from this chapter. This video you can watch yourself. I am not going to play now. Before we leave, I just want to say that finalize your groups as soon as possible. I have received some emails. I have written their names. I see a lot of you have written your names in that Excel sheet. Remaining people should write their names as soon as possible. Otherwise, by this weekend, I will just write your names randomly in any group. Okay. And yeah, when we meet day after tomorrow, we will have the quiz, the short quiz from chapter 1. Ideally, we should have had quiz from chapter 2 on Thursday because we finished chapter 2 today, but we will have that next week now. Yeah, that's it.